Hello, my fellow Ghoul Renegade, and welcome back to a brand new video of Ghoulish Reacts. And today we are back with day 2 once again of Iris Week. Now, the last time we reacted to a hero's dissension, which happened 1,000 years after the events of the beginning of Behemoth, otherwise known as the Jaws of Dawn. But now we're going to be taking a step back, a step back into the past, at least 1,000 years before the time of Goliath, before even the time that Lady Fate and Father Tyrant ruled over the depths. We are now looking at the story of Vegala, the second part of the Vegala arc. So I would like to mention at this point in the story, the Behemoth arc is done. Forget about the Behemoth arc. It's over. It's done. And now we are finishing up the Vegala arc. Now, this is all the videos I would like to mention that I'm watching. They are all in chronological order in this playlist. So you guys can go, I have linked the playlist down in the description below for every single video I've done. So you guys can go watch this for yourselves. But anyway, let us get into the prologue of the story of Vegala, known as Descending into the Iris. I would like to mention that every story bit, every title of all titles for these videos are references to the Heart of an Artist album. So like every video title is one for one with the album. So let's get into it.
In the eye of infinity, beauty within scorn rose to power.
Okay.
An ancient symbol of archival fell from grace, the iris, collapsing its primordial abode, scorching past through many dying stars, through the realm of Hithafol, light years away, and bursting through the shadows of space from its abode.
Okay.
It set course to plummet on a doomed planetary system, the depths, created to be destroyed, trialed against their bubble of infinity. Its star, the great beyond, has died, and the vast barren plains were set to sink into the hollow void of space, clutched by an ominous overseer of this desolate coffin, a charcoal prince with ruby rings and scorching red eyes, tears trickling down to his fingers, beholds the now descended emblem. It recorded pasts and presents to become infinity's resource for the becoming untouched. Blasting across the blackness of infinity reigns two vigilantes from the same birthplace of the Iris, Father Tyrant and Lady Fate, both making conquest with the help of many lost and tortured souls walking these grounds. The Collapse, standing 25 feet tall, jagged and morbid darkness shrouds their nervous systems, seemingly born from their realm on the other side, Yondrathal.
Okay. Now, I would like to mention at this point in time is that this prologue is merely referencing every single event that we have already seen before. It's referencing the events of Hither and Yonder. It's referencing the events of the beginning of Behemoth and the video we just recently watched, A Hero's Dissension. So all three of these events are going to be merged into one. The story of Vegala wraps up everything that we've heard of as of now into one giant story, whilst also reflecting on a story of what happened before. How the Iris left from Vegala Infinity, how it landed on the depths, how Father and Tyrant and Lady Fate came to be the king and queen of the depths itself. All of this is going to be revealed in all of the story of Vegala. And I think that's one of the most interesting thing about this. One more thing I would like to mention is that the Collapse is merely another name for the Onyx colony, because this is when Vice and Pavavory was ruling the depths, and Father Tyrant and Lady Fate weren't taking over yet. So Vice and Pavavory called them the Collapsed, or they were called the Collapsed, essentially. And then I think later certain Collapses got inducted into Vice's colony and became the Pavavory tribe.
Atop the mountain, Tyrant and Fate climbed before meeting face to face with the Charcoal Prince himself, Vicen Pavavory, surrounded by several distinguishable Collapses sporting protective armory. A brave fight was fought. The blood lay waste to the castle walls, and there lay the bitter and punished prince. Before he is banished to the nothingness known as the Damned, a lightless and blank stare through Vegala's bubble, Vysen heeds a warning of beast rising once again, feeding off the light that will soon be reborn. He is henceforth denied his ground and thrown away to the damned, not to be heard of again. Tyrant made a solemn vow to restore the great beyond, harness the iris's full potential, and protect the depths from further peril. Centuries pass. Societies were born, and 1,000 years of peace befell. The collapsed would soon become the Onyx Colony, sported with armor and weaponry forged from Purgaprime Castle, and harnessing arcane-like power. They are sent to the borderline to draw energy from their beloved star, which in turn was harnessed to control their next hosts on the other side of Hithofol's realm, on their connected planet called Nadoria.
Now, this is really interesting, because Nadoria is a planet we're going to be introduced to in the third Iris arc, known as the Valentine Renegade arc. Nadoria is the planet where the Valentine legacy lives, and this is where we're going to be introduced to our villain, one of our villains, at least, of the Iris universe, Abram Valentine, and his artificial intelligence known as Dovicom. We're going to learn all about that in the next arc, but we have to get through the rest of the Vegala arc before we even dive into that one, because that arc is long. I would say out of all three Iris story arcs, the Valentine Renegade arc is easily the longest. Now, one other thing I would like to make clear: Nadoria is not in Hithofol. It is actually on the living realm, Yondrathal. So, just thought I'd clarify that.
But 1,000 years later, the foreboded myth became a reality.
Here comes
Dark matter of sentience swooped from the rip in space. Paradigm worms came to suck the life dry from the depths to grow stronger, become many beasts in unison before becoming its ultimate form, the Motho Hive. An abomination colonized of these paradigm worms in their fullest form, it became an unfathomable threat to all. Tyrant and Fate escorted several Onyx Colony soldiers accompanied by their elites to battle this new threat to their world. Many were hoarded off from the Bipolesian, Anxosax, and Claustronoctus to be met with the dreaded Grief Worm before coming face to face with the dominant Titan swarming these soldiers of war. It was simply too powerful, undefeatable. The Motho Hive thwarts the army with might and tenacity. Alas, they had fallen. They were banished to the Damned, where the all-too-familiar Charcoal Prince would once again find themselves alongside Tyrant.
Yep, of course.
It seemed the myth was true, and all, especially the Damned, were terrified. A deal was made to revive the army in hopes of combating this unholy monstrosity again. But a condition was made.
Yeah, it's very interesting that the narrator mentions that the damned were terrified. Now, this is actually referenced in Beginning of Behemoth, because Vysen honestly believed that he wasn't really so much telling a prophecy. I think he was just thinking that he said what he said to merely scare Tyrant and Fate. But once Tyrant enters through the wormhole and tells him, hey, the Motho Hive is literally here now, I think that's when Vysen realized that he wasn't so much, lying. He just realized that everything he said was a big nightmare and that it came true anyways. And that's the reason why he made the deal with Tyrant in the first place, is because he was honestly scared that what he said legitimately happened and came true.
When the mightiest falls, Tyrant and Fate's firstborn is to be banished to the Damned immediately, with no compromise.
R.I.P. Goliath.
Fates were sealed, and hands were shaken. The talisman bestowed to Tyrant reignites the flame inside our now risen army, prepared to fight again.
Yes.
The Motho Hive shows no mercy as it slashes their king and queen, drawing blood. Fatal wounds were drawn, but what became of this was to make the grandest legend in tale. The fusion of Vegalian blood with dark matter created surrogacy for an egg that would be hatched, landing atop the crimson mountains they walked upon. The Motho Hive was weakened, and the soldiers gathered the remains to be locked away in a stronghold prison called the Encrypt. The egg was taken by Tyrant and Fate as they wait for it to hatch. And so, this journey's behemoth legend ascended from the egg. It was written, the Goliath was born.
Yeah, our
an
boy.
amalgamation of Vegalian anatomy, forged by skin of dark matter, beholding the strongest bone structure known to mankind. Goliath spent the rest of his years finding his place, being taught melee combat, growing his strength until he became too much for the colony. He simply could not fit in with a kind that differed from his own, perceived as a monster.
What's also interesting about the story of Vegala is that it really does go into a lot of Goliath's backstory, because when Dawn of the Demetrius came around, there wasn't much that we knew about Goliath, at least about his backstory, at least about his early life, him growing up on the depths. We just knew from that album that his home got invaded, it blew up, he turned into a skeleton, and he later gained his scythe, the Omen Glass, and I meant to say the Havoc Scythe, which was owned by Tyrant, the Omen Glass owned by Lady Fate, and later his Visor, which is from Abram, which we learn a little bit later down the line. That's in the Valentine Renegade arc. They don't explicitly say that Goliath took it, it's more so implied that he found it somehow later down the line. But the story of Vegala is really interesting because they go into his backstory, and we learn a lot more. But the only thing we really did know about Goliath was early in the days of Jaws of Dawn, is that we learned that he came from the dark matter of the Motho Hive. And now, since Will has made the story this far, we learned that the fusion of Father Tyrant and Lady Fate's blood, since they're from the Vegalian kind, it's like made him stronger than what he probably should have been. But it's cool, nonetheless.
1,000 years pass since his birth, and the depths once again reaches the edge of their galaxy's entire bubble. A wormhole opened from the damned, reining in dozens of gargoyle spirits in all shapes and sizes.
Sounds creepy.
Sworn to proclaim all with their first invasion. The Havoc Soldiers descended down on the depths to swallow it whole and destroy every living spirit. They, however, were no match for their greatest hero, Goliath, who fought valiantly against all odds, banishing the Havoc Soldiers back to where they came from. They did not come without sacrifice, and a graveyard was erected to honor the fallen. Their spirits still have so much trapped. They could not make it past their land without a fulfilled purpose. Goliath stands to mourn for the fallen soldiers.
Oh.
Approaching from behind, Father Tyrant walks towards his firstborn with a dire purpose for him: to keep guard of the Encrypt for an eternity, and to protect the land from anything ever emerging from the gargantuan tomb. This does not best please Goliath, as this will mean he may never properly have a connection with his family ever again.
That's true.
Goliath pleads for reason, his pleas falling on deaf ears as he is warned there is much more to learn about the struggle that befell this world. Tyrant harnessed the power of the Iris's all-knowing archival, strikes his hand down on Goliath's head, and sends him through a journey of memories untold. This is the story of those memories.
Okay, and there it is. That is the prologue to the story of Vegala. Everything that we've already learned so far is now been pretty much revealed to us. It's been recapped into one nice little box for us. So yeah, Everything that you guys have seen through all my other reaction videos, it has now been summarized up to this point. Now you guys know the very full story of at least the beginning of all of this. But now we're going to go a little bit back further into the past, as now we're going to be looking into the kingdom of Vegala Infinity, that small little kingdom that's enclosed in the middle of Hitherfall, that's sealed off from the rest of the universe. And this is where the story gets interesting. So I'll be right back. Okay, we are now continuing the story of Vegala with Chapter 1, SOS.
The creation of infinity started with a monstrous bang. Behold, Vegala Infinity.
Wow, it's the Big Bang Theory. Just kidding.
A rip flushed through the fabrics of space so large it forged two realms, Hitherfall and Yondrathal. The center of it all, born deities among gods, Hithistrust, Yondrathadicus, and Wonderamite. Hither and yonder, be ready for wonder.
Those are some pretty cool names, not gonna lie.
For millions of years, the deities of Vegala Infinity created planets among their systems, watching them die and learn from their graves, witnessing societies clash, digital races devolving, and nature crumbling. There stood tall in their hospice a grand spectacle of archival called the Iris, forged from the remnants of Vegalian aftershock and the spirit of all deities. It sealed every planet's past and present, bolstering a brighter and longer future for each system. Beyond their bubble were horrors beyond comprehension, looking to make connection with Vegala Infinity. It is this secret they must bear for themselves, to be kept from their people forever. Among the Vegalian citizens, there were specially chosen gods to oversee the new planet's awakening. The messengers of Vegala must rule over their new system's realm until the day it dies.
Wow.
They weren't there to protect and save worlds. They were there to merely watch its example.
So basically, what he's pretty much saying is that the deities of Vegala Infinity, Hithistrust, Yondrathadicus, and Wandramite, they're merely like timekeepers of the entire Iris universe. Like he said, they're not there to save worlds. They're simply there just to watch them. Now, you would see probably from these deities' perspectives that may be very, very immoral. And in certain ways, you could probably say that is right. It's like, why create a world only just to watch it die? Why not try to save it? But maybe that's the point. Maybe they want to gather enough knowledge from watching these planets die over and over again so that maybe they can make it last forever. Make it last for infinity, like their kingdom, Vegala Infinity. Now, that's just an interesting thought on my part. I'm not saying that's true. But I'm wondering if they want to use the Iris for so long, to keep these planets alive for so long. So eventually, over time, these planets, these stars, the entire system, Hitherfall and Yondrathal, they'll never die. They'll just keep going on forever and ever and ever in this endless cycle, essentially.
The deities created Vegala Zero, a smaller, singular planetary system connected to a star at the very edge of their infinity. What happens when the world is close to the bubble of infinity? Does it die to the shadow that would encompass it, or become resilient against it? No answer was clear until finding out.
Now, this is interesting because I wanted to bring this up because I got a comment just today. Actually, correction. I got a comment yesterday. And the creator of the Will Ryan Originals Wiki, he asked me a question specifically about Vegala Zero. And he said he didn't believe that it was simply just another name for the depths. Well, right here, this is the part where they kind of confirmed that it is. And even though they call it a smaller, singular planetary system. So, in a way, we were both right. It's simply another name for the depths, and it also is a planetary system that the deities created. So, it was basically just... they made it just to simply die off, essentially. But that's where this whole story comes into place.
Yondarth Atticus called upon its colony for a chosen god to oversee the depths turmoil, as many held their hands high.
See, now they're calling it the Depths. Okay, so it is simply just another name.
One stood tall. It was the charcoal prince himself, Vysen Pavavori.
Oh, Vysen
They geared his
volunteered.
arsenal and whisked him away to Vegala Zero on his mission, not to be seen until the task is done.
Okay.
Disbelief filled the air at what a dangerous existence this was, of which one stood against the deities.
Ooh.
One long-haired, bearded, bold, and well-kept Father Tyrant rose to his feet and dared to question Yondarth Atticus and the deities alongside their stead. This angered the Almighty, and swiftly cast Tyrant away to confinement, trapped inside a bolted and rotten cage to live his days until his punishment was complete. Claustrophobic, carnal, and a burdening reminder of the cries for help he wept for. Numb and pale, he would almost be lifted with offerings of help, but alas, was tormented throughout the peril and suffering. His hope numbing forever, all for daring to ponder if he will ever escape this horrific confinement. For once, time did not seem to heal wounds. It only created them.
Ah, so now we're starting to go into Tyrant's pretty much motivation for doing what he's doing, essentially. That's all I can say. You guys are just gonna have to finish this with me to see. So now, let's move on to Chapter 2. Okay, we are continuing with Chapter 2, Draw the Line.
Long since Tyrant had been banished to imprisonment for opposing the deity's decision. He was let free on a pardoning deal.
Let's go.
But while freedom was granted to the body, the soul was not inclined to follow suit. Father Tyrant lay desolate in his abode, slumped in a slough of pain and misery from within. His probation period had begun, and was tied to his colony for what many would consider a millennia.
Wow.
A cruel punishment from the deities, but for what they feel is a just scolding. However, while Tyrant occupied his time inside, he only learned to bottle his emotions. Who was there to talk? Who was around to bring sense? Nothing but a cold and gloomy attic filled to the brim with glowing lights of academic resource, known as Vigil orbs. These orbs hold knowledge from the ages, tailored as a resource for study and gifted to respected colonies by the deities to grow smarter and become stronger of will and mind. But the more he possessed Vigil, the more despair he feels. It boils inside. Has the knowledge he's learned been corrupt in puddles of deceit? Perhaps. Did they lie to their people? These questions bring Tyrant to his feet. Standing tall as he grabs hold of his chest, Vigil orbs catapulting to the walls. A ferocious roar emits from the monster inside that was trapped. It needed to be free. Tyrant has had enough. It was time to draw the line.
So after Father Tyrant went through his confinement and entered his probation period, he was banished back to his colony. We will later learn what these colonies are. There is 4 colonies in the Kingdom of Vegala Infinity, and they will be mentioned later. But he's currently tied to his colony. And now he is possessing these Vigil orbs, these orbs of knowledge, essentially. And I like how the narrator mentions that they are only given to tribes that are respected. So obviously, Tyrant's tribe is honestly pretty important in this world, in this kingdom. And so after his confinement, Tyrant is coming to the realization that maybe the deities of Vegala Infinity are hiding something. Maybe they are not all what they seem. Maybe they have been lying. But we already know what they're lying about. What they do with the planets. They don't save them. They just watch them die. in order to keep this system going, keep both realms going all at the same time for infinity, ironically enough. All right, let's continue on to chapter 3. Okay, we are now continuing with our third and final chapter, at least for today's video. Chapter 3, As the Lights Go Out. Now, I would like to mention As the Lights Go Out is honestly one of my favorite songs from the album, the original album at least, but I heard the Resurrection version in the track-by-track preview, and wow, does it sound good. I mean, all the songs sound really good. Like, I would say this is like one of the best remaster albums I've heard in a long while. All the songs sound good, but this one, since it holds a special place, I really do like the sound of it. But anyway, enough being said. Let's continue with our third and final chapter for today's video.
This feeling locked in tattered spirits. Has such a turmoil ever been felt before?
Maybe.
Overt awareness to the galaxy became the forefront of Tyrant, like he could see every single deception. And all it took was being scorned by powers above his own. He knew this could not last. The people needed to know the truth.
As they
He
should.
grabs his cloak and marches out of his recluse. He belonged to the Crimson Colony, among several more. These tribes are beholders of great power, to which their existence rests on one day becoming a god, taking charge of a new birth planet after the last was to perish. It was on this day of Vegala infinity, the people were to be told of unspoken gospels hailed from new perspectives. But alas, while Tyrant's prestige and strong will kept grounded and persistent, it would appear his words fell on deaf ears.
No.
The Crimson Colony would howl and chortle at his heated warnings. Laughter filled and erupted as it surrounded Tyrant, drowning him in a roaring sea of tragedy. The tribe was not ready to hear his truth, and with his failed attempt, he drags his heels back home, locking himself inside. He had kept his bravado intact throughout the tribe for as long as he'd truly lived. And his one and only chance to put down the veil once the show begins was met with shame. Failure filled his mind. Scars opening and a deep bludgeoning of anxiety pierces his heart. His lights went out.
Wow. So I would say this is the first time that Father Tyrant truly, really failed at anything. He went out of his house to tell his own colony that the deities had lied to them about everything, thinking that he could probably make a small impact within his own colony. And they laughed at him. They didn't believe him. They thought he was lying. And so he just creeps back into his house and shuts the door and goes to sleep. Wow, that sucks. Interesting. Well, guys, unfortunately, that is all the time I have today for this video. So please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and hit the bell for notifications for when I upload new videos. Make sure to follow my social media links down in the description below to join the Ghoul Renegade. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye!